Welcome to Off the Court, a show dedicated to making you the best version of yourself as a player and as a person. I'm Coach Jack, owner of Close the Gate Hoops, the #1 basketball training company in the state of Wisconsin. If you're trying to take your life and game to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's get it. What's up, everybody? I'm Coach Jack, for those of you that don't know me. Okay, I run a basketball training business located here in Janesville, Wisconsin called CTG Hoops. Raise your hand if you've done CTG Hoops before. Yes, okay. So, I'm not wearing CTG merch today. I opened another nonprofit in my father's honor, which I will talk about a lot today. But normally I give these speeches in terms of sports psychology, okay? So, working through things that you struggle with in sports, except there's a lot of things you learn from in sports, okay, that also can translate to so many other things in your life. So what my speech, the goal of the speech, okay, is to incorporate anybody, whether in sports or music, or you're really focused on school, okay, that you can take away from. Okay, so my goal of this speech is to basically motivate yourselves to be the best version of you, okay, and whatever that may be. And I like to call it the big four, actually the big three, because I ran out of time. I gave a speech, this same speech at St. Mary's an hour before this. So we're only going to do 3 major topics today regarding life, okay? The first is meaning, okay? The meaning of life. The second is happiness, okay? And the third is the mind, okay? The thoughts in our mind, all right? So how we're going to start out the speech, all right? Does everyone see this number on this fancy, really cool smartboard? Everyone see that number? Anybody want to guess what that number is? What it could mean?
7,000.
Yes, but what could that number represent? And throughout this speech, just to let you know, eyes and ears is something I'm going to say a lot. Okay, so when I tell you to write something down, I'm going to make this as interactive as possible. So everyone at some point today is going to volunteer, okay, to let me know their answers. Okay, but when I'm done telling you to write something down, okay, you put your pencil down, you put your notebook down, and you're looking at me. Everyone's paying attention. Sound good? And I'm also going to do my best to incorporate scripture, faith, and spirituality throughout the speech as well. Are there any other guesses on that number?
How many days have been alive?
Oh my goodness. Round of applause. Round of applause. Okay? I was not expecting that. Okay? So that number represents the number of days I've been alive. Okay? Why do you think this gives us meaning? Every day in my journal, I write down this number, or I'll add 1 if it's a new day, obviously. Okay? Because this gives me what I call death wisdom. Okay? So death is a scary topic. All right? It's not something we fear, and it's also not something we should avoid. My father passed away 2 years ago. He was my best friend. Okay? But what this does, and what my father's passing did, it showed me that time is very limited. We don't have a lot of time in our life. Okay? The average lifespan is 29,200 days, roughly. Right? My father lived 18,300 days. So if you divide my number by that number, I'm already 50% of the way through my life, which is crazy to think about. Okay? But why I'm telling you this now today, okay, is to motivate you to never let a day go for granted. Right? Every day you're trying to improve yourself. Okay? Be better when you go to bed than you were when you woke up in the morning. Okay? So, what we're going to do in our notebooks, I want everyone to write down in their notebook the word meaning. All right? Meaning with a line under it. Okay? So obviously the end goal through our faith and spirituality is to get to heaven. Okay? But if we know in 150 years all of us are going to be gone, right? All of us are going to be gone in this room. Okay? So why does anything we do matter? Right? So that's finding meaning in our lives. Okay, and I'm going to give you 4 steps today to find more meaning in your life. All right? So the first thing we're going to write down is called a value. I'm sorry if my spelling's horrible. It's hard to draw on a whiteboard, so give your teachers props next time they draw on a whiteboard and their handwriting looks good. Okay? So, can anybody tell me what a value is? What'd you say?
The worth of something?
Ooh, you're close. The worth of something? Okay, so what a value is, it's basically the most important things in our life. Okay? And it's a code that we live by each day. So to give you an example of a value for me, okay, one value is work ethic, right? I live my life by working as hard as I can because then I know I don't have any regrets, right? Do my best and forget the rest, okay, is what I like to live by. A second value for me that's very, very important to my life is family, right? Spending time with my family, the ones that love me. Okay, right now I have 5 close family members here with me. Okay, that's awesome, okay? Third could be faith and spirituality, being close to God, okay? Living out a Christ-like life, right? That can be a value, okay? How you can help yourself determine your values is think of someone you look up to. So my father was someone I look up to, okay? And two of his biggest values were family and work ethic. So that rubbed off on me, right? So try and think of someone you look up to and think of how they live their life and a life you want to live by. So right now we're going to do what's called a values ring, and you're going to write down the 3 most important values in your life. What's a value for you, Go?
Sports.
Yeah, sports can be a value, right? We can live by our life through sports and all the things that we learn through sports. Okay, what's another example of a value? Friends, definitely, right? Building relationships with other people can definitely be a value to live by. Okay, let's go one more. Family, beautiful. Okay, that's awesome. Now, the second thing we're going to write under our values ring that we just did, okay, is balance. Balance. Okay, so now that we've established our values, right, ways we want to live our life, we have to find balance between these values. So to give you an example from my personal life, I was obsessed with becoming a Division I college basketball player, right? So every single day I woke up and I overworked myself. I was constantly working to be really good at basketball, okay? But because of this is a value for me, right? Work ethic is a value, okay? But because I was working so hard, I didn't spend as much time with what? My family. And that's also one of my values. So an example of how I do this activity, okay, by balancing out my values, I would say a little less work ethic, okay, and a little more time spent with family. Does that make sense how this works? Or it could be the same. If you think you have really good balance between all 3 values you wrote down, you can keep it the same. So we have 3 values written down under value, okay? And now we're trying to balance these values. So you could use an up arrow to signal you need to increase the use of that value. You could use a down arrow to signal that you need to do less of that value. Or you could use a line. You're pretty good at managing your time. Are there questions on this? It's okay if you have questions. Okay, to put things into perspective, you guys, as you get older, once you've reached the age of 18, you've already spent 95% of your time with your parents. Isn't that a crazy stat? Right? So once you've hit 18, you've already spent 95% of your time with your parents. So for most of us, I would probably say family is a value we can increase. Does everybody have their balanced out of values? Yes? Does anybody want to give an example of their balance of values?
I want to spend more time practicing football.
Okay, spend more time practicing football. That's really, really good. Okay, anybody else?
Spend more time playing hockey.
Spend more time playing hockey. Okay. So you don't think you're doing pretty good on the family aspect of things? You spend a lot of time with them? Okay, that's really good. It's a good reflection. Now, everyone, moving on to the next stage. The third step to finding meaning in our life is this word, growth. Growth. Okay? So, it's a scientific fact that the happiest people in the world are constantly focusing on growing themselves. Okay? At the end of the day, every day, what I try to do is I try to go to bed and think of myself before I woke up, right? And ask myself, have I gotten better today? All right? What I'm going to do to demonstrate this growth aspect of meaning, all right, is I'm going to talk about a story from Scripture, okay, in the Bible. And Mark Batterson is an author, and he wrote a book on this Scripture story, okay? And it's called In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. Okay, and it's actually a Scripture story that's not talked about a lot, okay? So there's this man named Benaiah in the Bible, okay? And one day he encounters a lion, all right? He sees a lion. Most of us, when we see a lion, what are we going to do? Run. You are running for your life, okay? What does Benaiah do, you think? You're on the right. Yep, he chases the lion. Okay, he chases the lion into a pit, fights the lion, and then he's the only one to come out. Okay? This represents our life, you guys. 99% of people run away from lions. Okay? We want to be that 1% of person that chases lions. What's an example for me? I woke up today and I said, I'm gonna chase a lot of lions today. What am I doing right now? Am I chasing a lion? It might not appear that I'm that nervous, but I promise you, I was really nervous before I started speaking. Okay? In 6th grade, Mrs. Kane purposely failed a speech contest so I wouldn't have to speak in front of others. Okay? 8 years later, I'm now talking in front of you. Okay, but how did I get to that point, you think? I had to chase what? Lions, right? So this is called the chase lion activity. So everybody write in their notebook, chase lion. And it's important to note, a good example is spiders, right? We're all scared of spiders, most of us. Okay? But that's not necessarily an example that's going to be good for us. An example of a lion that's going to make us better could be talking to people, right? Sometimes we get uncomfortable talking to older people, correct? That can be an example of chasing a lion. Or going out and making a new friend. That's an example of chasing a lion. So what I want you to write down is think of something that makes you uncomfortable, okay? And you're going to chase that lion. And you're going to actually go do it. Let's hear some volunteers. Some people I haven't heard of. You're going to have to raise your hand at some point.
Being louder in class.
Being louder during class. That's awesome. So are you scared to talk loud sometimes? Yes. So that's an example of a lion you can chase. A little lion, right? Because then we can work up the bigger lions like talking in front of people. Okay? Any other examples? Talking to random people. Okay? That's definitely something that makes people uncomfortable and you can chase. Love it.
Trying a new skateboarding trick that you've never tried.
Ooh, I like that one, right? Trying a new skateboarding trick you've never tried. Right? That's how we grow in sports, by doing things we've never done before. Okay? Thank you for all those volunteers. Okay? Now, we're going to move on to the 4th step. This is the last step of finding meaning in our lives. All right? Influence. Can anyone tell me what this word means?
Power to impact others.
That's a really good description, okay? The power to impact others. So, basically what influence is, it's the power to change the outcome of another person. Okay? And we want to have good influence. Right? Right now is an example of me practicing influence, okay, to build up the meaning in my life. Okay? There's something called generational influence. Does anyone have a guess on what that could mean? Anyone want to guess? Gov, you've heard me talk about this, right? Probably. Okay. So, like right now, my father was huge on life advice, talking about life advice, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. So a lot of the words I speak are my father's words, even though he passed away 2 years ago. So can you leave your mark on the world even though you're gone? Yes or no? Yes. That's another way we can find meaning in our lives. Okay, and all of you right now can change the world. Okay, but you have to believe that. Okay, so what we're going to do for this activity is I want you to think of something you're good at. Okay, I want you to think of something you're good at. And now I want you to go influence another person and help them with what you're good at. Okay, so write down something specific, preferably something you can do today, and then you go out and do it. New volunteers. Go. Basketball. So be specific. What about basketball? Are you going to influence someone? Shooting? So what are you going to help someone with shooting? Teach them their form? Right? Who's someone you think you could do that with? Him? All right, I love it. So that's specific. Try and be specific with how you can influence another person. Okay? Any other volunteers? Math, right? So are you pretty good at math? Yep. So could you help some of the students that struggle with math? Yes, right? That's making an influence on another person. Really, really good job, you guys.